Hello and welcome to episode 67 of Driver Seat Blog Radio. As always, I'm your host, David G. Firestone. Before we get started, I'd like to apologize for the angry personal rant that I went on last week, but I just really needed to get off my chest because it was really bothering me. With that out of the way, let's talk about some news that's happened over the last few weeks. Now, we're going to start with the most obvious story, that of Cody Ware. Now, the night before the Bristol Dirt Races were announced that Cody Ware would be stepping away from the weekend to deal with a, quote, personal issue, according to Rick Ware Racing. Well, the kind of thing that happens. It is what it is. So Matt Crafton took over driving the number 51 Ford and finished a pretty respectable 34th, given that he probably wasn't prepared to race in 2 races last weekend. Well, a few days later, it emerged that the quote-unquote personal issue in question was a domestic violence arrest. Specifically, he was arrested for a felony assault by strangulation and a misdemeanor assault on a female. According to the Iredell County Jail, I-R-E-D-E-L, Cody Ware was booked on Monday morning at the Iredell County Detention Facility in Statesville, North Carolina. His bond was set at $3,000, which he posted. As a direct result, Ware has received an indefinite behavioral suspension from NASCAR under the Section 4.4.D of the NASCAR rulebook. Now, while this situation is still ongoing, Rick Ware released a statement. I have to read this because, for reasons that'll become clear shortly. Quote, "We are aware of the incident regarding Cody Ware and his indefinite suspension from NASCAR competition. We understand NASCAR's position on this matter and accept their decision. The matter is still under investigation and Cody is fully cooperating with the authorities as due process takes its course. Rick Ware Racing is committed to continuing our multi-car efforts in the NASCAR Cup Series as in the process of finaling our plans for the number 51 entry at Martinsville Speedway and beyond. These plans will be announced in the coming days." End quote. Okay. Do you honestly think the whole line about Cody cooperating with law enforcement and all the due process stuff would be there if he wasn't the owner's son? Do you honestly think that would have anything to do with it if it wasn't Rick Ware's son who was arrested for this? I hate to bring it to you, but in this day and age, would he even still be on the team? No, he wouldn't. I mean, you've had athletes and performers have gotten careers ended on lesser accusations, but you're going to stick by the guy after a felony domestic assault? And that gets nothing? And look, I've been saying this for years, and I think a lot of people agree with me. Right now for Rick Ware Racing, the best move you could possibly make at this point is to release Cody Ware, find something better. And in this case, anything would be better. In case you haven't noticed, and clearly you haven't, your team sucks. You have done nothing. In a decade in the Cup Series, you've done nothing. You've spent God knows how much money and have nothing to show for it. At this point, the smartest move you could make is to simply tear everything down and start over. Cody is not a good keep, and he was only hired because of nepotism. He's never getting better, and he will never win. Burn it to the ground and build it back up. Sometimes in life, that's your only option. And also, I love that Rick Ware Racing announced they're still working on plans for Martinsville. It's almost like reading a Tony Khan tweet. It's all over the place. But it's just, again, get rid of him, release him from his contract, get someone better. Nobody is seeing a diamond in the rough here, guys. He's the owner's son. That's the only reason he's got a ride. Find something better. Hey everybody, Future Dave editing this podcast. I'm going to have to add this little amendum. I finished the news very early Thursday morning, and then on Friday this detail came out, so I will add this in. This is from an article on frontstretch.com by Wyatt Watson from Friday, April 14th, 2023. Quote, Cody Ware, who was suspended by NASCAR after being arrested on separate counts of felony, assault by strangulation, and misdemeanor assault on a female on April 10th, is now facing additional charges against him. He was released after posting a $3,000 bond. Friday, April 14th, Ware turned himself into the Iredell County Detention Center for additional misdemeanor charges, assault inflicting serious injury, and communicating threats. His bond for the additional charges is placed at $5,000. Both the previous charges and the new charges following an ICSO investigation are the result of actions that took place on April 3rd when a woman called 911 and reported domestic assault according to the ISO. So that's where it stands as of the recording of this. I'll have more as this story progresses. Now, this story I actually did find kind of interesting because I am a lottery player, but I'm only a scratch ticket guy. So, and I only do that for YouTube. And I heard about this story. I had to do a little bit of research on it before I talked about it. It was announced recently that NASCAR and the Powerball are working together. And this comes from a story on NASCAR.com, which I had to edit a bit to. I trimmed out some stuff and I made some stuff easier to speak. Now, according to NASCAR.com, link in the description, quote, first teased during the partnership announcement during the Daytona 500 festivities, the NASCAR Powerball playoff promotion will begin at the state level with participating lotteries selecting entrants by a method of their choosing to form a national pool of semifinalists. The 16 semifinalists will go head-to-head in a series of drawings that coincide with the elimination rounds of the NASCAR playoffs. So I edited out a bunch of stuff there, and here's how the drawings are going to work. The first drawing will be on August 12th for the August 26th race at the Coke Zero Sugar 400 Daytona International Speedway. Of those involved, 16 semifinalists will advance. The second drawing will be on September 9th for the September 16th race September 16th Bass Pro Shop Night Race at Bristol Motor Speedway. 12 finalists will advance. The 4 eliminated will win $2,500 apiece. The third drawing will be on October 1st for the October 8th race at Bank of America. For the Bank of America Roval 500 at Charlotte Motor Speedway, 8 semifinals will advance. The 4 eliminated will win $5,000 apiece. The fourth drawing will be held on October 11th for the Xfinity 500 October 29th at Martinsville Speedway. 4 finalists will win the VI trip to the finals, and the 4 eliminated will win $7,500 apiece. And the final will be on November 5th at the NASCAR Cup Series Championship at Phoenix Raceway. The winner will receive $1 million. The other finalists will win $10,000 apiece. Now, again, I'm just a scratch card guy. I'm not going to be involved with this. I do like the idea, since to a lot of people and to a lot of NASCAR fans, playing the Powerball is a good thing, but also I've talked about this before on other places. It's a tangible source of hope. There are a few states where that have decent NASCAR fan bases that playing the Powerball in and of itself is not a thing. So I'll be interested to see how that one goes. I like it from a marketing standpoint too. It'll factor into something we'll talk about in a few minutes. So now we're going to get to a bit more of a downer news story, because there's 2 downer news stories because there are 2 stories that are sort of related. Now, according to an NBC Sports article by Dustin Long, link in the description, quote, Cup owners skipped Wednesday's, this was from a few weeks ago, quarterly meeting with NASCAR officials because of an impasse between the 2 sides on charters, according to the Associated Press. NASCAR issued a statement Wednesday. NASCAR is committed to open and productive dialogue on a regular basis with all industry stakeholders. We remain committed to continuing discussions in the spirit of collaboration with the shared goal of growing our sport and for the benefit of all stakeholders. The Associated Press reported Wednesday that the Team Owner Council, fearing the meeting would be hijacked by conversations solely about charters, told NASCAR it felt talks should be postponed. The AP reported that NASCAR planned to hold the meeting, but the teams did not attend. The Athletic reported that NASCAR team owners want the charter system to continue, but Jim France is said to be dead set against making it permanent. NASCAR charter agreement with Cup teams started in 2016, and this goes through 2024. The agreement sets up the revenue model and requires the 36 charter teams to compete in every event. Teams receive money based on entering each race, their performance in each race, performance over the previous 3 seasons, and the points fund. Now, even with all of this, the teams rely on sponsorship to offset the difference to compete in the Cup Series. Cup team executives said they need additional revenue streams to fix a, quote, broken business model. These comes after NASCAR rejected a 7-point proposal from team executives on the new model. Now, that sounds bad, but you factor in that there's ongoing negotiations with TV rights deals which will factor into this, and you've got some hope, right? Well, no, because this next article comes from sportscasting.com, specifically about Dave Moody, who is a veteran NASCAR broadcaster, and he's seen a trend of NASCAR races losing viewers. He cited a tweet from Austin Koneski, which notes the following: that of the first 9 races, the Clash was down 14.8%, the Daytona 500 was down 7.7%, Auto Club down 5.6%, Las Vegas down 12.2%, Phoenix down 15.1%, Atlanta down 14.5%, Circuit of the Americas down 16.1%, and Richmond is down 41%. And that was, now you can also factor in that the race was on FS1 as opposed to Fox. But you also factor in that the Bristol Dirt Race was down 13.5%, and you have a troubling trend. I have not seen the Martinsville numbers as of yet, but I will certainly factor those in. But when it comes to this whole thing, the facts are actually very simple to see here. Costs are up, fan interest is down, the negotiations for future TV deals are somewhat in jeopardy, the teams need more funds, NASCAR is not sure the current model will work long term. And I'm looking at this, and I'm coming to the conclusion that most other people are. Right now, the Golden Goose is in very real danger of starving to death. Now, granted, I'm not shocked by any of this. Now, a lot of these moves in terms of new races and new decisions and new directions should have been made years ago. But you could have capitalized on these decisions sooner, but you didn't. Now, I think it's pretty safe to say NASCAR is not going away. I don't think they're going away, but there will still need to be made some major changes to the financial models to keep the sport functional and feasible, especially for many of the smaller teams. Especially when it comes to the broadcasting. I mean, I've said before, NBC needs to go. But who it could be replaced with is questionable at best. I think there is a solution. I think all involved need to come together and figure out what we need to do to fix the problem. I think it's possible. I really do. But right now, it's looking more and more clear that the teams in NASCAR are too far apart to facilitate this happening. I hope cooler heads will prevail, but they probably won't. Fans are scared, and they should be. Teams are scared, and they should be. Drivers are scared, and they should be. All of these things could very well starve the Golden Goose. And I hope it doesn't happen, but we'll see. With that, I'm going to work on something for after the break that I have named A Tale of Two Street Races. I'll be right back. So, welcome back. So I read 2 news stories today, and they're going to factor into stuff we've talked about before. But I was trying to figure out a way to frame this and how to make this work the way that I wanted to, and then it dawned on me that I already had the answer. I think we all remember being in the doctor or dentist's office as a child and at least thumbing through or flat out reading Highlights for Children or Highlights magazine. Now, I was a subscriber growing up, so Highlights magazine was a childhood staple for me, with such memorable features as the Timber Toes, Hidden Pictures, What's Wrong, and very many other things. But for this example, we will use Goofus and Gallant as our sort of setup for this. Now, Goofus and Gallant was first appeared in Highlights in 1948, and according to Wikipedia, quote, the comic, published monthly in Highlights for Children, consists of 2 panels depicting the actions of 2 children, Goofus and Gallant. Gallant's actions are always virtuous and respectful in contrast to Goofus's, which are always rude and selfish. They are presented side by side with a brief caption, e.g., Goofus turns on the television when there are guests. When guests arrive, Gallant turns off the television at once. Though the direct results of these actions, good or bad, are never depicted, end quote. Well, I read some news stories this week, and I decided to do my own version for this, called A Tale of Two Street Races, which feature Chicago and Las Vegas in place of Goofus and Gallant. Now, these will be made on the 2 most recent articles I read on preparations for the Chicago Street Race and Las Vegas Grand Prix, respectively. You'll understand why momentarily. When it comes to their respective street races, Chicago provides updates on planning if and when they get around to it. Las Vegas had everything ready to go when they made the first announcement. Chicago didn't factor traditional summer events into planning. Las Vegas had everything ready to go when they made the announcement. Chicago just announced which streets will be closed and when last week. Las Vegas had everything ready to go when they made the announcement. Chicago has not made any announcements about what, if any, repairs will be made to the streets that make up the course for the race in July. Las Vegas has already started making the needed renovations to the streets last week, despite the fact that the race is in fact in November. The soon-to-be former mayor seemed to listen more to the good aspects and ignore the bad ones when signed the deal. Las Vegas analyzed everything and was ready to go when the announcement was made. Chicago has had a regime change which makes predicting city support for the race questionable. Again, Las Vegas had everything ready to go when the announcement was made. And finally, Chicago seems to be completely and totally aimless in preparations and announcements for quite a few things when it comes to the upcoming street race. Las Vegas had everything ready to go when they made the announcement. Do you notice a pattern here? Because I certainly do. If you need any more proof that the Chicago street race is probably not going to work well or be a total disaster, well, how much more do you need? The fact that Las Vegas had all of their ducks in a row says a lot, and the fact that Chicago doesn't even know where their ducks are right now says even more. I'm trying to be positive. I do want this to succeed, and I really am not trying to be a Mr. Negative here, but the fact that less than 3 months out, many plans or needed things to make sure the street race is going to work in full that aren't being done or aren't being discussed in Chicago is very telling. I live in the Chicago area. I'm a NASCAR fan. I really do want to see NASCAR become a NASCAR destination. I really do. I really do. But from what I've been seeing up to this point, this is not the way to do it. And I could be 1,000 times more positive than I am if I would just see something or read about something in the local media that would give me reason to be positive, okay? The more I read about the Chicago street race from local media, the more it becomes clear that preparations aren't being done, plans are either not being made or not even being discussed, or necessary things that need to be done simply aren't. And the fact is, it's very telling. As sad as it is for me to say this, it's going to fail, and that's the truth. I really am sad that it's going to fail, but the more I see, the more I read, the more I listen, the more I hear, the less hope I have for the success, at least long term, of the Chicago street race. Now, I'm also going to say that there have been other cities that have shown interest in having a street race with NASCAR. I'm thinking you might want to pick one of those. You might want to pick one of those. Hey, if New York wants to have one, if Los Angeles has to have one, hell, if Ottawa, Illinois wants to have one, let them have it. I'm not going to sit and try to pretend to be optimistic when there's every indication that this is going to fail. That's just the way it is. And I think that after the first race, Chicago really needs to discuss its future. And I don't see it lasting well at all. And with that said, episode 67 of Driver Seat Blog Radio comes to an end. Next week, episode 68. I'm Dave Farsley. If you like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you then.